This is the OFN Today on the Ourlads Football Network as we talk Atlanta Falcons football with Kevin Knight, editor/writer for the Falcoholic.com at SB Nation. Kevin, good to talk to you again.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me back on.
And we're talking football, Kevin. Yes.
Yes. Real football for a change, right?
No off season, no COVID, no politics. Let's just talk football.
Yeah. Well, thankfully, COVID has been, merciful in not affecting the NFL thus far. So we'll just keep our fingers crossed for that.
Yeah, so far. Absolutely. All right. So let's get right to it. I'll tell you what, I want to talk first of all about some of the I guess top stories to come out of camp over the last few weeks. And this is something we discussed around draft time, and that was the left guard spot. Mm-hmm. And with now Jamon Brown gone, it appears it's up to a four-man race still. Carpenter, yeah. McCray, the rookie Hennessy, and Matt Gono, who I know nothing about, but that's why we have you on the program. So who is this down to? And I was reading your article, I think it was a week or two ago, and you seemed to say, hey, what the heck, Justin McCray.
Yeah, I mean, everyone was kind of going in on Matt Gono, which, I appreciate because I think he's a quality player. But yeah, I mean, McCray, I think, is a guy who's been kind of miscast in the NFL as an offensive tackle. He doesn't have the length to play it. He was a good offensive tackle at UCF, in the AAC, where he was able to kind of use his athleticism and those types of traits to be fine. But in the NFL, you're going up against, the best player in the AAC every single week, essentially. So at tackle, it just wasn't a good fit for him. But whenever he actually got a chance to play guard, like in Green Bay, he graded out as an average to above average starter at guard. So I think that's a spot where he can find success. He's also very, very cheap in terms of contract price, so that's helpful. Matt Gono, though, is a very interesting player. Was actually probably going to be the starting right tackle going into last season due to Caleb McGarry's heart condition, and he missed all of training camp. But Gono in the last preseason game suffered an injury and had to miss the start of the season, and then from then on it was just back to the rookie. So
he missed his chance.
He did, but he was really good in the preseason. He graded out really well according to PFF, and when he came in as a reserve and played guard last year, I believe on the right side, for a game or two and graded out well as well. So, I mean, he's got a lot of potential. I think he's the swing tackle at worst. He's not going anywhere. But, yeah, I mean, he's a quality player. But to me, from the buzz we're hearing right now, it seems like Matt Hennessy, the rookie, is actually the one who's most impressive, that the team really likes, which I think is a little bit of a shock because he hasn't played guard since, like, high school. So, we know that they loved him coming out of college and that they loved his, physicality and his football IQ, and he's athletic. He checks all the boxes, particularly at center. He does have the size to play guard. He's not one of those guys that you can only put at center. But from the buzz we're hearing, it looks like it might actually be Hennessy when the dust clears.
Well, I guess it's about putting the five best players on the field. And like you said, they were real excited about Hennessy. When we talked about the pick, it was pretty obvious that no matter what happens this year, 2021, Hennessy will be the starter. Alex Mack gone because the Falcons just won't be able to afford Alex Mack. What is the situation with Mack right now? Is he still playing at an elite level? How many more years does he have? And does he have one more big contract left in him?
I mean, I would say he played at a very good level last year. He wasn't quite elite, but this was like the first year in a long time that he didn't really play like elite. We're talking like high 70s PFF grade instead of like 80s to 90s, so he was still a very good center, still top 10, but maybe not like the best center in the NFL anymore. So I think he's still a very good center, someone you want on your team, but he's been a player that's also been kind of flirting with retirement for several years now as, an option. We know he has interests outside of football. So he may just decide to kind of ride off into the sunset after this year, regardless of, whether the Falcons want to extend him or not. As you said, financially, it's probably not going to work, particularly if the cap goes down. But yeah, I mean, I think he can still play. I think he still has at least a few more years left in him as a good center at worst. But
And
yeah,
you
I mean,
never know if another team is just going to say, "Hey, Alex, I know you're thinking about retiring, but we have a little, a chit-a-chang that we
yeah,
want to throw your
exactly.
way."
Yeah.
So,
Hmm.
all right, let's continue with the offense. Now, the team did not address anything regarding the future for Matt Ryan at the quarterback position. Does that mean that they still believe that Matt Ryan is going to be around playing at a semi-elite to elite level for another 2 to 3 years? And today, the NFL, these quarterbacks are lasting into their 40s. Uh, and or is it more of, well, yeah, we were thinking of maybe bringing someone in, but we do like Bankert, so maybe he's somebody that will give another year to find out whether or not he's a guy that we can look at. Otherwise, we just didn't see anybody in the market this past draft that we liked anyhow. We had other needs. We'll figure that out down the road because we still have trust and faith that Matt Ryan will be our starter here for another several years.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they have any concerns about Matt Ryan in their mind at all at this point. He's always been a very durable quarterback. He's always been a quarterback that has been able to take hits, and he's never been overly reliant on things like athleticism or stuff like that. So he's one of those guys that for sure could potentially play into his 40s. You know, you never know when you get to that point whether people just start breaking down or what happens. But I think that they're not really concerned about the future at the position at this point. The bigger concern is, who is the backup. Matt Schaub actually played great last year in his age 40 season. In that one game he had to come in, I think he threw for 460 yards against Seattle, which is just absurd. But
Yeah.
so I mean, I think they're comfortable with Schaub as the backup. I think they really, really like Benkert, and I think had Benkert not suffered a season-ending injury in the Hall of Fame game last year, he may have beaten out Schaub for the job, because Schaub, if you don't know, he doesn't really play very well in preseason, which kind of gets the fans on him. But with the way the offseason is now, particularly with all the concern about COVID and what would happen if Ryan had to miss a game, I just don't know if they're comfortable handing the reins over to Benkert at this point, just keeping Benkert and letting Schaub walk. They could keep three. I know they really like Benkert. I mean, they cut his competition, Danny Etling. So it seems like it's Benkert is the guy they want to develop. They do like him, and he's played well when he's gotten opportunities. I just don't know if this year, with everything going on, if this is the year he actually takes it over from Schaub. I say this every year also, this will probably be Schaub's last year. He's over 40 years old, but he keeps coming back, so we'll see what happens there. But I think if Benkert doesn't win the job this year, he's probably going to get it next year. The Falcons aren't really a team that, since Vic, have been investing a lot of picks in quarterbacks in the draft.
No.
They've basically been happy to just kind of try to find someone as an undrafted free agent. And I think they like Benkert enough that they're happy with that. I just don't, when you take a quarterback in the fifth round or later, the difference between that guy and the undrafted guys is just so small most of the time that it doesn't seem to matter. So I think they like Benkert. I think they're pretty comfortable with him as the third quarterback and the future developmental guy.
Yeah, they have, let's see, what Schaub is going to be, what is he, 39 now, Schaub?
Yeah.
And Ryan's 35. They got some old quarterbacks back there, but especially Ryan, who was sacked career high 48 times last year. And again, that's the offensive line. That is, and the left guard, no matter what happens this year, if Hennessy does become the center, the left guard spot is, you got to believe, is going to be a huge need in the next draft. They have to eventually find someone to solidify that spot. Hopefully that doesn't do damage to them this year. Running back and the running game is part of that. It's not just about protecting Ryan, but under Dirk Cutter, he's been criticized, fairly so. If you take a look at his career, he doesn't really have a lot of success running the football. Coleman's gone and Freeman's gone. It's amazing how fast that happened.
Yeah.
But they're both gone, and now comes Todd Gurley. And the big question around everybody's mind is Todd Gurley ever going to be the player he once was? Is he just going to be okay, a middle-of-the-road guy? And then combine that with the issues the Falcons have had, either on the offensive line or with Dirk Cutter's running schemes. Are the Falcons going to get much in the running game this year?
I mean, I think it would be pretty hard for them to get less than they got last year. That means that it'll be good, right?
Yeah.
But, I mean, they're going back to the zone scheme, which I could go on and on about my critiques of Cutter. Like, I don't know why you would hire someone that doesn't run the scheme you want to run and make him learn it. And then also he just kind of ditched their basic running scheme and tried to change it. And they went with more power stuff despite all the personnel being zone and all this. It was a whole thing. But they've apparently now recommitted to zone again. So that's good. They're much better equipped for it. Gurley's a good running back. Like, as long as he's healthy, like, he's going to be a good runner that's going to produce more than what the offensive line gives him. So, the Falcons' offensive line being a big question mark, I think he's going to be fine. Will the running game be good, like Kyle Shanahan era good? Probably not. But will it be like the 29th running game in the NFL? No. It'll probably be like in the latter part of the teens. Like, it'll be effective enough to not be a total afterthought like it was in 2019, but I think it still won't be the strength. The passing game under Dirk Cutter is always going to be the focus. And,
yeah.
I mean, rightly so, probably, with the Falcons personnel.
And who's the number 2 guy then behind Gurley? Is there a definite number 2 that you see at this point that has the lead?
I don't think so. They've been pretty open about the fact that it's like an open committee behind him. They have Ito Smith, who's probably the passing focused guy. He's the one that has the most experience as a third down receiver, the shiftiest. He's basically like Devontae Freeman light, so they really like him as a receiver. Brian Hill is probably like the do-it-all kind of guy. So if you were going to draft someone in fantasy as the second guy, I'd probably say Brian Hill would be the first man up, like if Gurley had to take a game off. And then Quadri Olson is like a short yardage specialist. I suspect he'll probably be inactive as long as no one's injured, but they seem to really like him still, so I don't think he's like in danger of getting cut. But he just kind of fills such a similar niche to Todd Gurley. Like, I don't think they're taking Todd Gurley off the field for Olson in any situation where like it's 3rd and 1. Like, I just don't think we're going to see that happening. So
okay.
They do seem to like all those guys, and they really like the fullback. They just extended him too. So.
All right. Well, let's go with the receivers now. And Austin Hooper finally had his breakout year. He leaves, just too expensive. So what they did was the Falcons traded for Hayden Hurst. How's that coming along? Because there's not a whole lot behind him. So this is a big opportunity for Hayden Hurst and definitely a big need for this Atlanta offense and Matt Ryan to be able to trust his tight end.
Yeah, Matt Ryan loves the tight ends. From what we've heard in training camp, the relationship has grown quickly with Ryan and Hurst. He's one of Matt Ryan's favorite targets in camp. Ryan just always seems to really get along with his tight end and build that relationship quickly. So, I mean, and Hurst, I think Hurst is a guy that is probably more like physically talented than Austin Hooper, but he doesn't have the proven production. So there's a question there about, can he replicate what Hooper did? Can he even improve on that? I don't suspect we'll see that level of production in year 1, but I do think that Hurst is going to be close enough that it might not matter for the Falcons. Like, I could definitely see Hurst, as a tight end that gets more than 500 yards and has a good number of touchdowns. I think he's going to be a focal point of the offense. And they do like their number 2 guy, who's Jaden Graham, former undrafted free agent receiver specialist. Graham had the highest yards per reception on the team of anyone with more than 5 catches last year. He had almost 20 yards per catch. So he was their kind of play action leak out seam buster tight end. And he has legitimate talent. So they like him as a receiver, and they brought back Luke Stalker as like a tight end 3 blocking option. So I think they liked where their tight end room's at, and I think Hayden Hurst will be a pretty good, substitute for Austin Hooper. I just think people that are like, oh, well, he's, a better athlete, so he's going to be even better than Hooper. Like, you probably want to calm down on that for at least a year, like, so they can build that relationship.
I mean, anything can happen. You never know. I mean, but coming to a new team and all of that, that is asking a lot for someone who is still looking to become the player that everybody was thinking of when he came out of the draft. But it was still projection at the time, and we're still in projection territory for Hayden Hurst. But it could happen. But like you said, more than likely, just don't get on him if it's not this year. Just be patient. What about the receivers? Because Jones and Ridley, I get the feeling that this could be, and maybe it's next year too, but this could be the best year both of these 2 receivers are on the field at the same time at their stage of their careers. And if that's the case, boy, do they have to take advantage of that.
Yeah. I mean, Julio's obviously still playing at an elite level. Ridley's like rising to that level. Um, I think the Falcons legitimately were in play for 3,000-yard receivers last year. Had Ridley and Hooper not missed, 3 games apiece, they were both well on track for that. And part of that's the ridiculous volume of Dirk Cutter's passing game, but
Yeah.
it's still an achievement. But yeah,
Fantasy.
yeah, load it up if you want guys that are going to get a lot of catches in those
Yep.
PPR leagues. Yeah, hit those guys up. But yeah, I mean, I do think we're going to see Jones and Ridley both go over 1,000, and I think Ridley's going to really establish himself as a very very good NFL receiver. And I think over the next few years we're going to see the team kind of transition to Ridley as the primary option
Yeah.
as Julio kind of slows down. But I don't know like when Julio will slow down and what that will look like. We've got guys that fall off quick, and we've got guys that kind of linger forever, like Larry Fitzgerald. So I don't know exactly what camp Julio's going to be in. I just have a hard time believing that he's just all of a sudden going to fall off when he starts to get into his 30s. So I think the two of them will be good. The team also really likes Russell Gage as the wide receiver 3.
Okay.
He got a ton of volume after Mohamed Sanu got traded, and wasn't like spectacular in terms of yards per catch. He was kind of the dump off guy, but they really like his athleticism. He's fierce as an over the middle target, despite not really having phenomenal size. They like him a lot. They're happy with him as the slot guy. He seems pretty clearly above everyone else. So he's the clear-cut number 3 in my opinion. And then one other name to mention would be the undrafted free agent Chris Rowland from Tennessee State. He looks to be the heavy favorite to win the returner role, and his college tape is pretty exciting and fun to watch. Broke, I believe, Jerry Rice's HBCU receptions record by 1 in his senior season. So
Yep.
he's a guy that produced a lot at that level. Electric returner. So I don't know how much of a role he'll have on offense, but as a returner, he could be an exciting player to watch.
Is that in both kicking and punting?
Yes,
Okay.
he handled both.
All right, excellent. Let's now go to the defense, and we spent a lot of time on our last show talking about the whole transition on defense with Raheem Morris and how interesting that was. And the hope is that the way that the team progressed under Morris last year, and especially it came right around the time they went into the bye at 1-7, they came out at 6-2, and Raheem Morris had a lot to do with that, taking over a larger role, and now is the defensive coordinator full time for the team. What have you seen in this camp, or just what you've heard so far this offseason with him in charge and the new faces and so forth? What are the changes, if anything, that you're going to see with him being the head man?
Yeah, I mean,
Even though we understand the head coach Dan Quinn and what his role is.
right. I mean, I think when Dan Quinn was leading the defense, it was a bit more of a passive scheme. Like there was a lot more off coverage and things like that. And I don't think things are like drastically different under Raheem Morris, but I do believe that there's going to be a more aggressive press man look to things. I mean, they're still going to play a lot of cover 3. I mean, that's the defense, but I think they're going to do a lot more aggressive coverage. They're going to play a lot more on the line and less off. I think they're going to try to throw some more stuff at defenses and do less, sitting back and just kind of waiting. And I think they really are going to try to use the secondary in more of a matchup manner as opposed to playing sides like they basically have under Quinn every single year. They moved on from Desmond Trufant, which I don't think was really an indictment of Trufant's talent. I think they just wanted the money. They went out and signed Darqueze Dennard to play the slot as an elite slot corner, which they did not have in any way, shape, or form last year. And then they basically said, okay, we're going to have the rookie AJ Terrell on one side, who for the record has been fantastic in camp. He's been maybe the most impressive player. So that's always what you want to hear about your first rounder.
Yes.
But the other side, it appears to be that they're kind of switching off between Isaiah Oliver, who is, incredibly long, has 99th percentile, arm length for a corner. And they're switching off between him and Kendall Sheffield, who was rumored to run in the 4.2s. He didn't get to run at the combine because of an injury, but he had run in the 4.2s. He was a state record holder as a track athlete. So they're kind of going to use those two guys as matchups. Oliver is probably going to be the guy that you use for players like Michael Thomas, Mike Evans, big receivers that you need length to cover, whereas Sheffield's going to sub in to cover the Tyreek Hills, the Ted Gins, the speedsters. And I think that's a much better plan than what they've been doing, because we've seen, smart offenses are going to move their receivers around to get them in mismatches against your corners. And, Oliver, I think, can be a good corner if he's used properly. Same thing with Sheffield. But if you let other team dictate who's going to go up against them, you lose that advantage. So
very smart.
Interested to see, more of that matchup style of defense under Raheem Morris. And the other coach I think that's going to be a really underrated contributor this year is, Joe Witt, a very well-respected secondary coach, joined the Falcons this offseason. So I'm expecting, if there are big strides from the secondary and a different style out there, I think that he'll have a lot to do with it as well.
All right, and as far as the safety position, I mean, with Neal, it's about staying healthy. Yeah. So what's the backup plan right now, just in case?
Yeah, I mean, they drafted Jalen Hawkins in the 4th round. He's kind of a versatile safety. He missed the beginning of camp on the COVID list, so he's still playing a little bit of catch up. But based on his college tape, I mean, I think he has the potential to be like a solid starting backup kind of player. They still have Sherrod Niesman, who, if they actually let him play on defense, he usually grades out as like a solid starter. But they have some kind of issue with actually playing him on defense and not taking him off special teams. So who knows about that? They re-signed J.J. Wilcox, who was going to be Neal's backup last year before suffering a season-ending injury in camp. So they have a couple of like established backup plans here.
Okay.
So we'll see, who wins out of that group.
Where does KZ fit in?
Yeah, I mean, what we've heard is that KZ is actually the one that's starting at free safety, and they're kind of rotating Allen in for different things, like as a third safety in some situations. And 3 safety sets might be something that we see more of this year because of their depth at safety. But yeah, I mean, I think KZ, they want him out there because of his turnovers. This team has kind of struggled to get turnovers recently.
That's right.
He's been the one consistent guy that gets turnovers. So I think they, are hoping for more growth from him from a coverage standpoint. He's aggressive. He likes to guess. He's a strong hitter, but he makes mistakes also as the other side of that coin. So I think they're hoping that he could play a little more under control with a little bit better coverage instincts. And then they always have Allen there, who is just super reliable, super smart. Also a fairly good, ball hawk in his own right, but just not a great athlete. So I think they're going to, use those guys kind of interchangeably. Honestly, if Neal goes down, it might be that we see, Ricardo Allen just get put into the lineup as the box guy. He's very, very technical tackler. I wouldn't say he brings the wood, but he's very good at getting guys down. So, they lose the physicality from Neal with Ricardo, but, he is a good tackler. So that might just be what happens this year. They might not mess around with trying to bring in another, quote unquote, strong safety and just be like, we have 2 good free safeties. Let's just put both of them in there and just roll with that.
Interesting. Okay. And still, talking about turnovers, that means you got to pressure the quarterback. And that was a major issue last year. It wasn't an issue for them when they nearly won the Super Bowl. And that's the difference between the last few years and the Super Bowl team. 29th in sacks last year is not going to do it. They go out, they sign Dante Fowler. They also trade for Charles Harris. They pick up Dion Buchanan in free agency. And of course they drafted Marlon Davidson, which is also a pretty big pickup up front in the draft. So how's the front 7 going to shake down? Because they don't really run a standard 4-3. You see a lot of 2 linebackers in there and 5 DBs, so it was 5 defensive linemen. So tell me what you think. How's that front 7 looking as far as some of the players that have been new to the team this offseason and how they're going to impact the new Falcons?
Yeah, I mean, Dante Fowler's obviously going to be the focal point of any sort of like pass rush improvement. They're paying him $16 million a year. He's going to be expected to go out there and produce pressure at a high level. The other thing with Fowler is that he's just a really good run defender too. Beasley had improved as a run defender in 2019, but before that, he was just kind of a liability out there on rundowns. So I think Fowler is a guy they know that can be an impact player against the run. and the pass. So I think they like his versatility there, and hopefully he can pressure the quarterback at a more consistent rate than Beasley. On the other side, I think they're just really hoping that taking the opposite tack with Tack McKinley. They didn't pick up his fifth-year option like they did for Beasley. By all accounts, he's kind of taken that as like a wake-up call that he needs to get his stuff together and start being consistent, because it's never been about talent with Tack. He's always had tremendous physical talent, and we've seen at times that he can turn it on and really get it done. But he hasn't done it in any consistent fashion. So they're really hoping, I think, that with Fowler as like an established, consistent edge presence on the other side, that Tack can kind of use that as like an inspiration, and also have the benefit of going up against the secondary tackle and not having a lot of attention focused his way. Maybe turn that into some better production. They're obviously expecting big things from Marlon Davidson as a second-round pick. He's probably going to be one of those primary pass rushers. Obviously, you know what you're getting from Grady Jarrett. He's going to be great. He's going to do a great job. He's going to consistently blow plays up and get to the quarterback. But the problem with Grady is he just would blow up a play and get into and blow up the pocket, and then the quarterback would just roll out.
Yeah.
And Vic wouldn't be able to make the play. Tack wouldn't be able to make the play, and the quarterback's able to get the ball away, and they lose sacks. They were generating pressure at like a fairly decent rate last year, just weren't really converting it into sacks. So that's always frustrating. John Kaminsky is going to be last year's fourth-round pick. Just a crazy athlete. He's bulked up a bit to the 280, 290 range. He's going to be another guy that they put on the interior in nickel. He's kind of going to play that Jack Crawford role. They have a lot of these big edge guys that they want to use for kind of run defense and run defense on the outside and pass rushing in the nickel. Guys like Alan Bailey, Marlon Davidson to some extent. John Kaminsky's another one. They just really like that archetype. So we could see some, creative things. We could see some more 3-4 style looks, with these guys playing kind of that 3-4 DE role. I think they're going to try to get creative with how they bring the pressure. But I think mostly it comes down to Dante Fowler. Like if he can be a 12-plus sack guy, I think the pass rush is probably going to be good. If he ends up being a disappointment, it's probably not going to be good. So,
all right. And what about Charles Harris? Because he never really he's one of those first-round draft picks or early-round draft picks that just does not succeed. I mean, we're talking about McKinley with the Falcons. So Harris moves over to Atlanta, and what's the prognosis so far? And has the change of scenery impacted him at all?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't heard a word about Charles Harris.
Well, that's not good.
Yeah, I mean, if they cut him, they're on the hook for like most of his, nearly $2 million in cap. So like they're probably going to try to find a spot for him if they can. But I mean, I'm not really expecting much from him more than like just a rotational presence. I mean, despite his lack of like impact production, like he's graded out as like about a solid starter according to PFF in his kind of rotational snaps, playing like 30% of the snaps in Miami. So like he's not a liability. He just is very much a disappointment for a first-round pick. So I think the Falcons have him as like a rotational guy, someone that can go out and just do like a solid job and not just get blown off the ball and provide a little bit of pressure here and there. Like I think that's basically what they have in mind for him. I think they were obviously hoping that maybe they could get something more out of him, but
sure.
To me, I think that's probably the most likely outcome is that he's kind of just a depth guy for them. And if they get something more from him, great, but I don't think they're really expecting much. All
right, who's the number 2 and 3 linebacker as far as snaps after Deion Jones?
I mean, I think they really like Foyesade Oluokun. I mean, he's graded out as like a solid to slightly above average starter. I think he's got room to grow as well. Coming from Yale, this would be his 3rd season now, so I think he's got room to grow. I think he'll be the number 2 linebacker. But the rookie Michael Walker has been one of the other most impressive players in training camp. I believe he has like 3 picks in training camp so far. He's just always kind of around the ball. He has good instincts. He's kind of a similar guy to Devondre Campbell, but where Devondre Campbell was like, I think had better size, better athleticism, Walker has a lot more experience. Like he's more technically sound. So I think that could lead to Walker potentially having a little bit of a stronger rookie season maybe not having quite the ceiling that someone like Campbell could have if he reached his potential. But I think Walker's going to be the third linebacker. I think he's going to play Sam and also probably rotate in other packages. But those will be the top three guys. Obviously, they like Deion Buchanan. I think he'll be, someone they rotate in. And then after that, it's like guys competing for special teams roles.
Okay. And speaking of special teams, you take a look at this unit where they used up a 7th-round draft pick on the punter from Syracuse. So he's the guy, right?
Oh yeah, they cut Ryan Allen, so it's Hofrichter's job. By all accounts, he's been very impressive. I mean, he was a phenomenal college punter. I've gotten to see him play. I live in Syracuse, so great punter. I believe Syracuse in 2019 allowed like less than 20 yards of punt return yardage because of his just ridiculous hang time on his kicks. So he's a very good punter. He has a lot of control. He can get a lot of hang time. Also can kick long field goals.
Yes.
Kicked, I believe, 3 long field goals in his time at Syracuse, including, I think, a 52 or 53 yarder. So a versatile guy, obviously young and cheap now that he's on his rookie contract compared to the $3+ million a year Matt Bosch was making. So I think they're pretty happy with him thus far.
And Koo? What about Koo? Koo's set? He had a pretty good year last year.
Yeah, I mean, in like March, April, we heard like, oh yeah, we're going to consider bringing in competition for Koo, and it just never materialized. By all accounts, he's been very reliable in training camp. He's missed a kick here and there, but I think it was today he was, or yesterday maybe, that he missed one to start, and there was speculation that maybe it was the holder, and then he hit the next 5 kicks. So like. He's been, there's not any sort of kicking issues here like there were last year with the Falcons, where they had just a disaster with Giorgio Tavecchio just missing kicks all over the place in preseason. So Koo seems to be pretty comfortably in control of the job.
And again, with Kenyon Bonner gone, you believe Roland is going to end up as the number 1 return guy?
Yep. I think it'll be Roland. They are still involving Brandon Powell, a veteran, in the competition, but Powell doesn't really have like a lot of production there from previous stops. He didn't really do much of it in college either. So I just think, Roland's got like hundreds of returns under his belt at the college level. I think he's probably just a better option in terms of athletics. So I do think that Roland will end up winning that job.
Kevin, how's everything going with your podcast? How often do you do it?
Right now, we're still every other week during the off season, but that'll change here pretty soon. Once the season gets started, we'll be doing it weekly, and then we'll be doing our shows on the weekends as well, post-game shows. And we've also had former Falcons guard Keenan Forney has joined the show as one of our co-hosts.
Okay.
So he comes on just about every week and is able to provide the players' perspective on things, and he's a lot of fun to talk to, so that's been a lot of fun to have him on.
Excellent. And also, of course, falcoholic.com, that you can check out your work. You working on anything specific between now and the regular season?
Yeah, I'm working on doing profiles on every single Falcons player on the roster.
I've noticed that. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, I'm into the undrafted guys now. I don't know if I'll get to everyone. I think it's going to be close, but
that's good.
Yeah, so we're getting there with that, and then I'm going to do another roster projection next week, so you can look for that as well.
All right, sounds good, Kevin. Falcons kick off the season against who?
The Seahawks.
And where's that game?
I believe it's in Atlanta.
Okay, yeah, I know, right? It's like nobody's going to be at any of these games anyway.
Right, yeah, so there's no fans, so it's like, oh, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Hopefully that'll change in a few months, but in the beginning, it's
so.
going to be quite eerie, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, Kevin, great job as always. We look forward to talking to you once the season gets underway, and then we'll find out how the Falcons are doing with their 2020 edition. You think it's going to be a playoff year?
I've been on record predicting 7-9 again. I do think that the training camp has been encouraging, but I do worry that every training camp is encouraging. So I think that they've, despite my reservations about last year and how poorly that was handled, I do think that they have done a good job this offseason. I think it's been a good offseason. So now it's up to the coaching staff to really make this team what it is, because I think the talent's clearly there. So now it's up to the coaches to deliver.
But at 7-9, does that mean there's a new head coach and maybe even a new GM?
I honestly don't know. I mean, to me, I think Dan Quinn is more likely to stick around than Dimitrov in that situation. But it would be weird if one got fired and the other didn't. But it's also weird that the team went to bat for Quinn to such an extent when they were 1-7. Like, it's rare that you see a team just roar to life and just defend their coach to that level. So the players just love him, and that is a strength for Quinn. I mean, he really commands the loyalty of his players due to his personality and his genuineness with them. So, I mean, I wouldn't rule anything out. I think if they go 7-9 again, there's going to be major changes, whether that's Quinn or Dimitrov or both. Not sure, but we'll see. I mean, obviously, I hope they make the playoffs.
Absolutely, but, it's the NFL. Yeah. You missed the playoffs.
I mean, 7-9 might make the playoffs.
Oh no, don't say that. That wouldn't be any good. All right, Kevin. Thanks. We'll talk to you when the season kicks off, sometime maybe September.
Absolutely. Thanks.